Trick or treat, bub. It's that time of the year, guys. Halloween is right around the corner, and I hope everybody here is going to have a spooktacular time. Halloween is one of my personal favorite holidays, and it's that time of the year where kids can just stuff their faces with candy and no one bats an eye. People dress in costumes like myself right here. But most of all, for me personally, and I'm sure many others, it's that time of the year where you get to watch the scariest, bloodiest, or spooktacular films and TV shows at this time. That time of the year where we get to watch movies and shows based on monsters, zombies, aliens, other horrors that go bump in the night. And in this video, I want to talk about my top 10 personal favorite things to watch on Halloween, whether it be a movie or a TV episode. Now, a couple disclaimers. The only criteria that this list has to meet is it has to be spooky in some sort of way, involved with the holiday itself, or just has that vibe and tone where it just feels natural to watch it on Halloween compared to watching it, let's say, in the middle of July or June or something like that. And also, I don't know any clips or audios used in this video. Every film and TV show that's being used in this is owned by its respective companies and studios. But with that out of the way, let's jump right into this spooky list. Number 10 on this list is for any lovers of the vampire genre, and that is the seminal 80s classic, The Lost Boys. Released in the summer of 1987 and directed by Joel Schumacher, it stars Kiefer Sutherland and the Coreys of the 80s, as I like to call them. It follows a family moving into a new town. It's California, in Santa Carla to be exactly. As they move in with their grandfather, they realize there's more going on in this town than they're led to believe. This movie is just pure 80s fun. It had a dark sense of cinematography, a great atmosphere, and of course, an electrifying and amazing soundtrack. With Kiefer Sutherland playing an amazing villain. Like, this is the kind of villain that I love to see in a horror movie, where you just get creeped out by him, but he's also just got so much charisma and just sucks the audience in on every word he's saying. And also, he's one of those villains that I just get excited to see get taken down. Not to mention some great vampire effects and makeup and action scenes that really show how to do a vampire movie properly, both in a scary and fun way that you can only see in the 1980s. I mainly recommend this movie for lovers of the 1980s like myself, and who are looking for some good blood-sucking content to watch on Halloween, despite its setting and taking place in the summer rather than having that creepy fall aesthetic that I personally prefer in a movie centered around Halloween or any kind of monster or horror flick.
One thing about living in Santa Carla I never could stomach. All the damn vampires.
Number 9 is one that I feel like not many people know about, and I consider it a hidden gem of the 80s, and that is 1987's The Monster Squad. And for me to sell this movie to anybody who's never seen this before, I only need to say one sentence. It's The Goonies versus monsters. Literally, that's all I need to say to get someone to watch this. But if you need a little bit more convincing, here it goes. There wasn't many monster movies back in the 80s that involved the Universal monsters, like Dracula, the Frankenstein monster, and the Creature of the Black Lagoon. And this movie was the only one that did it justice. It was a great love tribute to those Universal monsters, and it was a great introduction to audiences of that decade. With the plot being Dracula is assembling some of the world's most famous monsters, including the likes of the Mummy, the Frankenstein monster, the Wolfman, the Creature, and they essentially are just trying to take over the world, and it's just up to a group of boys and kids trying to stop them. And it's just simple 80s fun, and honestly, I just love the simplicity behind it, and it's just a blast to watch, especially around Halloween, with a masterclass of practical effects and mild jump scares. The movie also contains some of the best dark sense of humor moments I've seen in a movie, with moments including this. This, where the fat kid actually says his name.
My name is Horace.
And of course, this.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all your time. Thank you.
I expect you both thought I was some kind of monster myself. A vampire, perhaps? That's quite all right. But I am not, you know. If I were a vampire, then I wouldn't have a reflection. Now, would I?
Man, you sure know a lot about monsters.
Now that you mention it, I suppose I do.
If you haven't seen this movie, what are you doing? Seek it out, go watch it. It's the perfect movie to watch on Halloween. The only reason it's not any higher is it's difficult to track down to watch on streaming. So you better find like a local DVD or do some digging yourself to give yourself. So my number 8 entry is for all you Marvel fans out there, and that, of course, I'm talking about is Werewolf by Night, released on Disney Plus in 2022. Marvel was not doing super great after Endgame. The quality wasn't as consistent, and we were just bombarded with too much content rather than the quality of it. However, and there was a brief period where Marvel was doing special presentations, and this was the first of its kind. And what a way to start. Out of all the post-Endgame projects Marvel has done, this one has the most creativity for sure. And is Marvel / Disney's love tribute to the Universal monster movie era back in the 1940s with its black and white aesthetic, practical effects, especially with how Jack Russell, the werewolf himself, looks. There's barely any CG, and it just looks amazing. Not to mention its great music and loving callbacks to film itself in the golden age of Hollywood, with cigarette burns being shown during the camera roll, and of course with a likable cast. And delving more into the supernatural side of the MCU is what it needed at that time, and also makes this the perfect Halloween experience for any Marvel or MCU fan that's looking for something a little bit more spooky in their superhero catalog. And I really hope we get to see this character pop up in other future projects, like the rumored Midnight Suns project that's been at the work at Marvel's for years now, and maybe a potential crossover with other characters like Doctor Strange, Deadpool, Blade, if that movie actually happens. But it's a great quick watch. And for those that hate black and white, you know who you are. Don't lie to yourself. There is a color version of it, so relax. But personally, I prefer the black and white one. It's just got more of a unique aesthetic look to it, and it just makes it stand out more. And that is why it's on this list. And my number 7 pick is actually a fairly recent one, if 2012 is considered recent for some people, and that is Hotel Transylvania, starring Adam Sandler. It's purely on this list because of how much fun I have watching this movie every single time. It has great animation, and Adam Sandler is really good in this. And I know he gets a lot of flack, and people have opinions on it, but me, I really enjoy the guy, and I just hope for the best for him. And even though his newer stuff is not as good as his older stuff. So if you're a parent and just wanting to find something for your kiddos to watch on Halloween, this is it. It's great for the whole family. I would also recommend its sequel, mainly the second one. The other two, I would just avoid. At number 6, and this one's kind of a no-brainer for some people, and that is 1988's Beetlejuice, directed by Tim Burton and starring Michael Keaton. Like I said in my Beetlejuice review, this movie is a bona fide classic to me and a must-watch on Halloween. But if you want to elaborate even further, let's take a deep dive. This movie just has a certain charm to it that just cannot be replicated these days. It is both funny, kooky, scary, and creepy at the same time. but without it being too scary for younger audiences. It's also unique and creative with its atmosphere, setting, characters, cast, and soundtrack. But in an atmosphere that just screams Halloween and is just right for the fall season of getting spooky and maybe getting some chills down your spine. With, of course, the showstopper of Michael Keaton as the title character, despite having very little screen time. And as the saying goes, it's showtime. So if you want some more ghoulish and ghostacular content in your Halloween season, this is it. And for those that just love Tim Burton's movies and just want Michael Keaton just being Michael Keaton, this is it also. And that's why it's on this list.
You're working with a professional here! Nice fucking models!
So now we're at the part in the list where the top 5 is like mandatory for me. Like I have to watch these on Halloween, because if I don't, my season will feel a little naked without it. And starting at number 5 is obviously, and of course, our first and only slasher in this list, and that is 1978's Halloween, directed by John Carpenter and starring Jamie Lee Curtis. What can I say about this movie that hasn't been said already? It transcended the slasher genre and is a milestone in not just horror, but in film culture as a whole. And with the super low budget it had, it made this movie a giant success. And with the right writing, directing, and acting, and just the atmosphere produced, it made it a bona fide classic and masterpiece in the horror genre, and made Michael Myers not just an iconic horror movie villain, but an iconic movie villain, period. With that white blank William Shatner mask popping up everywhere on Halloween stores, and it's easily recognizable. And that is why it's in the top 5. It would be a little higher, it's just it doesn't have a whole lot to do with the holiday. And it's one of its sequels, Halloween 3, better suits the holiday. I personally haven't seen that yet, so that's why that's not on this list. But if you want a good slasher to watch this season, this is it.
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
Number 4 is our only sitcom bit, and it's actually one of my favorite TV shows ever, and that is Community, that ran from 2009 to 2015 on NBC. Community is just one of those gem of a shows that you just have to watch. I watched it during COVID when everybody was staying at home and lockdown, and this show really helps me get through it. And it's no stranger to having its own Halloween specials. Each season had its own. Season 1 was a really good one. The show still finding its identity, so it didn't really stand out as much as others. Season 3 was a great riff on telling ghost stories and cabin in the woods type of scenarios in a horror movie. Season 4, we don't talk about it at all, and it's just a gaslight season. So in this episode, essentially, it's a riff and a spoof on the zombie genre, where in this episode, the students got infected by a zombie outbreak, but really what it was, the dean was cutting corners and ended up serving food to the students that were long over expired, and it was government issued, and ended up giving them zombie-like symptoms, but without actually being zombies. Abed, of course, was just having fun with this and makes this a whole zombie movie situation, and everyone else is just annoyed and fed up with him about it the whole time. But the main focus of this episode is Troy. He has been struggling during this episode on what is considered cool to celebrate Halloween, and he's just trying to fight the urge of unleashing that inner child and imagination that's in him, and kind of just not enjoying himself during it. And honestly, speaks to me personally because I've been in the same boat as him, but I've came to the conclusion, like, yeah, it's Halloween. I need to enjoy myself more, and this is my way of enjoying it. And that's the kind of discovery that Troy went through in this episode. Ultimately, he saves the day by, quote, the power of imagination, and was able to get everyone snapped out of their zombie-like state, but right after he got bitten, of course. But yeah, this is one of the best episodes of the season, and I highly recommend checking this out. It's streaming on Peacock, and also Community is a great show, guys. Please give it a watch. You will not regret it.
Destroy the brain!
And my number 3 pick is actually one I recently watched, and after viewing it, it became a Halloween must-watch for me every year now. And that is 2007's Trick or Treat, directed by Matthew Norrington. So it's an anthology film that follows 4 different characters in a small town in Ohio and how they celebrate Halloween. And it kind of shows the consequences of disrespecting the holiday itself, and actual monsters get involved, and where there's more emphasis on the trick over the treat, and you can see what happens when that takes place. And the 4 stories itself include a psychotic principal that takes the holiday way too seriously, a teenage girl that has a bit of a dark secret to her, kids that took the trick part of Trick or Treat a little too far to somebody, and my favorite, of course, being the old man who's essentially Ebenezer Scrooge, but for Halloween. And what makes this stand out compared to other anthology movies is, instead of it just being 4, 5, or however many stories there are, there's no connectivity. It's just stuff that just kind of happens. Whereas in this one, each story links up in one shape or fashion, whether it be a character from one story making an appearance in another, or tying it back to the backstory of another one. It's actually really cool how it's all put together, and it made it that much of a better watch for me personally. I also kind of consider this a good introduction to R-rated movies. If you're someone at that age that's about to become old enough and able to watch that kind of thing, this is a good horror movie to start with, For those that like to shop at their local Spirit Halloween or any costume store around this time of the year, that's where this guy shows up. You've seen his costume, props, decor everywhere in those stores. If y'all are wondering, this is the movie he's from. His name is Sam. He's great. He's like a little gremlin ghoul. He's a ton of fun to watch. And for those that love Halloween, this is a must-watch. It pays tribute to the holiday, its roots, and it shows like how a small town would celebrate the holiday, and it's just a ton of fun to watch, and it's definitely puts you in the right mood for goofy, campy horror fun. And I highly recommend viewing it if you have not watched it already. For viewers of this channel and people who know me personally know that Batman is my favorite superhero, and my number 2 pick is kind of a no-brainer for someone like me. It is actually two items in this list. It's a little cheating, but for me, they both come in hand. With that being from the 2004 series The Batman, which depicts a younger Bruce Wayne making his way to becoming Gotham's vigilante to a full-blown superhero. And one of the ones I'm talking about is its spin-off film, where he comes face-to-face with an iconic Universal movie monster.
So the folk tales are true. There is another bat in Gotham. Count Dracula, I presume.
Yes, my dear viewers, that is right. Batman himself is fighting the Lord of Vampires, Dracula. And this movie is awesome. It had an awesome fight, great animation, and Gotham has never been spookier as it is in this movie. This movie, The Batman vs. Dracula, was released in 2005 and released by Warner Home Media, and it was a spin-off film of the show. As a kid, this gave me nightmare fuel, with scenes including the likes of this, and this. And what makes this movie stand out to me personally is this was my first introduction to Dracula and vampires as a whole. And after watching this, it just stayed in my mind ever since as a kid. And the older I got, it became more of a Halloween staple for me to watch. Which leads into the other half of the equation, where the show had an actual Halloween-themed episode, the season 2 episode, Grundy's Night. And in Grundy's Night, Gotham's urban legend Solomon Grundy rises from Gotham's swamp and terrorizes the descendants of Gotham's founding families. Batman investigates, and at first he didn't believe the legend. He knows that there's something going on here that's more than meets the eye, and the mystery involves one of his classic villains. I don't want to spoil the review, but it's a ton of fun to watch. And for any Batman fan on Halloween, both these are must-watch.
You are Bruce Wayne. I'm the Batman. And you're dust.
My number 1 pick should be a no-brainer and should be on anybody's must-watch list, whether it be number 1, number 2, or anywhere in your list. And that is It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. This is a must-watch for me every Halloween. I remember growing up watching this every year at school and on cable as a kid, and it just brings a smile to my face every time I watch it. It fills me with nostalgia of how kids treat Halloween and the holiday itself. Great fall aesthetic, and of course it has the iconic I Gotta Rock, with Linus being the main focus of the story, with him defending the legend of the supposed Great Pumpkin. I like to see it as kids defending their own beliefs in what they value and what in the unknown that they believe in, and it's very strong and prevalent in Halloween itself. And I'm sure a lot of you love watching this special as much as I do every year. And the same goes for all the other Charlie Brown specials. But this one in particular hits a little different for me. And so for families of all ages, kids, adults, it doesn't matter how old you are, this is a must-watch for everybody on Halloween. And I'm sure it already is, but this is my message to those who haven't seen it yet. Y'all are crazy. You're missing out. Give it a watch. You won't regret it. That is my list, dear viewers. I know I missed a ton of other movies and specials. There was just too much for me to cover. Maybe I'll save it for next year. Who knows? But let me know which ones I missed down in the comments. Tell me what your favorite is. Was there one that I missed? And do you have a personal favorite that maybe I don't know about? Feel free to let me know. Check out the socials in the descriptions. And hopefully, I'll see you guys next time. Happy trick-or-treating.